January 11th, 2026. 3:42 p.m. Culiacán, Mexico. 6 DEA agents sit in a nondescript van, 2 blocks from a Sinaloa cartel warehouse. They've been watching the building for 4 hours, documenting arrivals, photographing faces, recording patterns, standard surveillance, routine intelligence gathering. Then, a teenage lookout on a rooftop makes eye contact with Agent Marcus Webb through binoculars. For 3 seconds, they stare at each other. The lookout's hand moves to his radio. And in that moment, everything changes. Because in Culiacán, the cartel owns the streets, the police, the government. And 6 American agents are about to learn that being surrounded by 80 gunmen in a city where no help is coming means making impossible choices. But this isn't a story about DEA agents being rescued. It's about what the U.S. Embassy authorized to save them, and why that authorization changes everything about American operations in Mexico. The surveillance operation had been planned for 2 weeks. Intelligence indicated the warehouse was a major distribution hub, cocaine shipments arriving from South America, being repackaged, redistributed to smuggling routes into the United States. The DEA wanted evidence, photographs, vehicle identifications, enough to justify a raid by Mexican authorities. Except Mexican authorities in Culiacán don't raid Sinaloa cartel properties. Not without cartel permission, not without arrangements, not without understanding that some buildings are off-limits. The cartel doesn't just operate in Culiacán. They run it. The 6 DEA agents knew this. Senior Agent Marcus Webb, 15 years DEA, 7 years Mexico operations. He'd picked the surveillance location carefully. 2 blocks away. Upper floor apartment. Vacant. Owner paid to stay elsewhere for the day. Good sightlines to the warehouse. Good escape routes if compromised. But he'd miscalculated one thing. The cartel's counter-surveillance. Because while the DEA was watching the warehouse, the cartel was watching the neighborhood, looking for exactly what the DEA was doing. Cameras, lookouts, radio networks. The Sinaloa cartel in Culiacán operates like a military organization, and they'd learned to spot surveillance. At 3:42 p.m., the teenage lookout on the rooftop saw something wrong. A van that had been parked for hours, windows slightly tinted, antenna that didn't match the vehicle. He raised binoculars, saw faces inside, saw equipment, saw Americans. He radioed his supervisor. The supervisor radioed the warehouse. The warehouse called the local plaza boss. The plaza boss made a decision. Americans conducting surveillance meant federal operation, DEA or FBI. That meant they had evidence, photographs, intelligence, that couldn't be allowed to leave Culiacán. At 3:47 p.m., 5 minutes after being spotted, Agent Webb saw vehicles converging on their position. SUVs, pickup trucks, men with weapons visible, not even trying to hide, coming from 3 directions. Fast, Webb made the call. "We're compromised. Execute emergency extraction." The team had rehearsed this. Start the van. Drive away. Different route than entry. Get to the safe house. Abort the operation. They ran to the van. Agent Webb turned the ignition. Nothing. Dead battery. Impossible. They'd checked it 3 hours ago. Then he understood. Someone had disabled it while they'd been watching the warehouse. The cartel had found them before the lookout spotted them. This wasn't compromise. This was a trap. Building. Now. 2nd floor. Barricade. The 6 agents ran into the apartment building. Upstairs. Into the vacant apartment they'd been using. Webb was already on his radio. "Embassy, this is DEA Team 7. We are trapped. Multiple hostiles. Culiacán, northwest sector. Request immediate extraction." The response from the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City was immediate, but not reassuring. Copy your situation. Be advised, Mexican authorities cannot respond. You are in Sinaloa territory. Embassy is evaluating options. Stand by. Mexican authorities cannot respond. That was diplomatic language for the truth. The police in Culiacán wouldn't come. Couldn't come. The cartel controlled them. Any attempt to rescue American agents would be blocked. Delayed. Reported to the cartel. The DEA team was on its own. At 3:52 p.m., the first cartel vehicles arrived outside the building. Men with AK-47s, AR-15s, one with an RPK light machine gun. They didn't storm the building. They surrounded it, took positions, covered exits, established perimeter. They weren't rushing. They had time. They knew help wasn't coming. Inside the apartment, Agent Webb assessed their situation. 6 agents, 15 rounds per pistol, 90 rounds total. No rifles, no body armor, no grenades. They were surveillance team, not assault force, against what appeared to be 20 or 30 cartel gunmen. In a building with one staircase, one exit. They had hours, maybe, until the cartel decided to come up the stairs, or burn the building, or just wait for them to run out of food and water. The cartel wasn't in a hurry. They owned the city. They owned time. But Agent Webb had one advantage. His radio. Direct encrypted line to the U.S. Embassy. And the embassy had options the cartel didn't know about. Stay with me, because what the embassy decides in the next 8 minutes will determine whether this becomes a rescue or a massacre. And that decision violates every diplomatic protocol governing American operations in Mexico. At 4 p.m., the cartel made their first move. Not an assault. A message. A pickup truck pulled up outside the building. A man with a bullhorn, speaking Spanish, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. Americans, you have 30 minutes to surrender. Come out with your hands up. You will not be harmed. You will be returned to your embassy. 30 minutes. After that, we come in. It was a lie. Everyone knew it was a lie. Surrendering meant execution. Probably on video. Definitely as message. But the cartel was being public. Creating witnesses. Creating narrative. Americans refusing to surrender. Forcing the cartel to act. Making it look like the agent's choice. Inside the apartment, Webb's radio crackled. DEA Team 7, Embassy. We have authorization for emergency extraction. Military assets en route. ETA 22 minutes. Can you hold? 22 minutes. Against how many gunmen? Webb looked out the window. More vehicles arriving. More fighters. He counted at least 50 now. Probably more he couldn't see. Positions on rooftops. In buildings. Covering the street. Negative on holding 22 minutes. We have limited ammunition. They'll assault before then. Need immediate options. Copy. Extraction team is inbound. Marines from Embassy Security Detachment. 24 personnel. Helicopter deployment. They will fight to your position. You need to prepare rooftop extraction. Can you reach the roof? Rooftop! Webb looked up. The building was 4 stories. They were on 2nd floor. 2 more floors above them. Probably locked. Maybe barricaded. And the cartel controlled the street. Controlled the building entrance. Any attempt to go up meant fighting through the building while the cartel was outside. But it was the only option. Affirm. We can reach roof. Need time. You have 18 minutes. Embassy out. 18 minutes. Until U.S. Marines arrived. 18 minutes until the most controversial military operation in Mexico since the Mexican-American War. Because what was about to happen violated Mexican sovereignty, violated diplomatic agreements, violated every protocol about American military operations on Mexican soil. But 6 Americans were about to die, and the U.S. ambassador had made a decision. Save the agents. Deal with diplomatic consequences later. At 4:04 p.m., Agent Webb told his team the plan. Fight to the roof. Marines would extract via helicopter. It sounded simple. It was suicide. The building had 1 staircase. The cartel controlled the ground floor. Going up meant exposing themselves, fighting through limited space, against superior numbers. But staying meant dying. So they'd go up. They barricaded the apartment door, stacked furniture, created obstacle. It wouldn't stop the cartel, but it would slow them. By minutes, they went to the building's internal stairway, started climbing. 3rd floor. Doors locked. Webb kicked one open. Empty apartment. Kept climbing. 4th floor. Same. One more flight to roof access. The roof door was locked. Heavy padlock. Webb shot it. 3 rounds. Destroyed the lock. Pushed the door open. Stepped onto the roof. Hot sun. Flat surface. Good landing zone for helicopter. If the helicopter could get through the cartel's fire. If the Marines could reach the building. If they could hold the roof for At 4:09 p.m., Webb heard the first assault on the 2nd floor apartment. The cartel was coming. Gunfire. Grenades. They were breaching. Would find the apartment empty in seconds. Would realize the Americans had gone up. Would pursue. Roof access. Prepare to defend. The 6 agents took positions around the roof access door. Limited cover. Concrete structures. Air conditioning units. Not much. Against what would be dozens of gunmen coming up the stairs. At 4:11 p.m., they heard boots on the stairs. Multiple people. Coming fast. Webb aimed. His pistol at the doorway. 15 rounds. Make them count. The first cartel gunman appeared in the doorway. Webb fired twice. Hit once. The man fell back. More gunfire from the stairway. Cartel shooting blindly up through the doorway. The agents couldn't return fire without exposing themselves. Stalemate. For now. At 4:13 p.m., Webb's radio crackled. DEA, Team 7, Marine Extraction Force is 2 minutes out. Prepare for heavy fire. Rooftop smoke grenade for identification. Marines will suppress ground forces and fight to your building. Helicopter will attempt rooftop extraction. Under fire. Be ready. 2 minutes. Webb had 1 smoke grenade. Standard survival gear. He pulled the pin. Dropped it on the roof. Green smoke began billowing. Visible for miles. Marking their position. Marking them for rescue. Also marking them for every cartel gunman in the area. At 4:14 p.m., the sound of helicopters coming in low and fast. The cartel heard them too. Gunfire erupted across the neighborhood. AK-47s firing at the helicopters. Tracer rounds arcing up. The helicopters took fire but kept coming. The first Black Hawk didn't land. It hovered over a street 2 blocks from the DEA's building. 24 Marines fast roped down. 30 seconds. Boots on ground. In the middle of Culiacán. In the middle of cartel territory. In the middle of what was about to become a urban firefight. The second helicopter circled. Waiting. That was the extraction bird. Waiting for the Marines to reach the building. Waiting for clearance to land. Waiting while the cartel tried to shoot it down. The Marines hit the street in combat formation. 12 men per squad. 2 squads. Weapons up. Scanning for threats. They didn't have to wait long. The cartel opened fire from multiple buildings. Windows. Rooftops. Street level. The Marines returned fire. M4 rifles hammering. the sound echoing through the neighborhood. This wasn't surveillance. This wasn't covert. This was open combat. American Marines fighting in a Mexican city, killing Mexican nationals, on Mexican soil. It was an international incident. It was a diplomatic nightmare. It was the only way to save 6 Americans. The Marines moved toward the building. 2 blocks. Might as well have been 2 miles. Every building held cartel fighters. Every corner was an ambush point. The squad leaders called targets. Suppressive fire. Grenades through windows. Methodical urban combat. Textbook assault through hostile city. At 4:16 p.m., the Marines were 1 block away. The cartel concentrated fire on them. RPGs launched from rooftops. The Marines scattered. 1 rocket hit the street. Exploded. Shrapnel. Smoke. 2 Marines down. Not dead. Wounded. Others pulled them back. Combat medic worked while under fire. The cartel had home advantage. Numbers. Position. They'd been fighting in these streets for years. Knew every angle. Every firing position. Every kill zone. But the Marines had training. Discipline. Overwhelming firepower. And most importantly, they had a mission. 6 Americans were on that roof. Surrounded. Out of ammunition. Out of time. The Marines would reach them. Or die trying. At 4:18 p.m., the lead Marine squad reached the building. Breached the ground floor. Found 3 cartel gunmen. Eliminated them. Cleared the room. Started up the stairs. The second squad established perimeter outside, suppressing fire on surrounding buildings, keeping cartel from reinforcing. On the roof, Agent Webb heard gunfire inside the building. American gunfire. M4 rifles. Distinct sound. Different from AK-47s. The Marines were inside, fighting up, coming for them. At 4:19 p.m., the first Marine appeared on the roof. Staff Sergeant Michael Torres. He took 1 look at the 6 DEA agents. "You guys ready to get out of here?" Webb had never been so happy to see a U.S. Marine in his life. "More than ready." Torres spoke into his radio. "Rooftop secure. Bring an extraction bird." The Black Hawk that had been circling swooped in, took fire from buildings. Door gunner returned fire. 50 caliber machine gun tearing through walls. The helicopter flared over the rooftop. Didn't land. Couldn't risk being hit on the ground. Hovered 10 feet up. "Go! Go! Go!" Marines grabbed DEA agents, pushed them toward the helicopter. Agents jumped, grabbed hands reaching down, pulled inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All aboard. The Marines followed, climbing into the helicopter while taking fire. Torres was last. As he grabbed the helicopter's side, an RPG streaked past, missed by feet, detonated against a building behind them. The helicopter banked hard, pulled up, gained altitude. The door gunner kept firing, suppressing, covering their escape. At 4:21 p.m., 39 minutes after being trapped, all 6 DEA agents were airborne. Safe. Extraction complete. The second helicopter picked up the Marine ground element. Fighting withdrawal. Loading under fire. 3 Marines wounded. All accounted for. Both helicopters headed north. Toward the U.S. border. Toward safety. Behind them, Culiacán burned. Figuratively and literally. Buildings on fire from grenades. Bodies in the streets. 14 cartel members dead. Dozens wounded. The neighborhood looked like a war zone. Because it had been a war zone. For 19 minutes, American Marines had fought through a Mexican city. Killed Mexican nationals. Conducted military operation on Mexican soil. The diplomatic explosion was immediate. Mexican government filed formal protest. Called it invasion. Violation of sovereignty. Act of war. Demanded explanation. Demanded apology. demanded assurance it would never happen again. The U.S. ambassador's response was carefully worded. Emergency rescue of American personnel. Imminent threat to American lives. Mexican authorities unable to respond. Regrettable but necessary. Won't happen again if Mexico protects American personnel. But everyone understood the real message. The U.S. would send Marines into Mexico if American lives were threatened. Would violate sovereignty if necessary. Would fight if forced. The rules had changed. The Sinaloa cartel understood too. American agents weren't easy targets anymore. Trapping them brought Marines. Attacking them brought military response. The cost was 14 dead fighters. The message was clear. Americans were off limits. But here's what disturbed everyone involved. Here's what kept the ambassador awake. Here's what changed American policy in Mexico forever. It had taken 19 minutes. 19 minutes from Marine deployment to extraction complete. 19 minutes to fight through 2 blocks of cartel-controlled city. 19 minutes of combat in a foreign nation. All to save 6 agents who'd been compromised during routine surveillance. And the question, everyone asked afterward, was it worth it? Worth the diplomatic crisis? Worth the violation of sovereignty? Worth the precedent? Worth the message that American military would operate in Mexico without permission? The answer was yes, and that answer changed everything. Because now the cartel knew. Now Mexican government knew. Now everyone knew. Threaten Americans in Mexico, and Marines come. Trap American agents and helicopters arrive. Create hostage situation, and U.S. military responds with force. The rules of engagement had fundamentally shifted. The invisible line that separated law enforcement from military intervention had been crossed. And once crossed, it couldn't be uncrossed. 3 weeks later, the precedent was used again. Different cartel. Different city. FBI agents ambushed. Marines deployed. Extraction successful. Mexican protest was quieter. More resigned. They understood the new reality. American personnel in Mexico operated with implicit military backing. The embassy could authorize intervention, could send Marines, could conduct operations without Mexican approval. It was de facto acknowledgement that Mexican government couldn't or wouldn't protect Americans. So, U.S. military would. The 6 DEA agents returned to work after 3 days. Medical evaluation, psychological assessment, debriefing. They'd done nothing wrong. Followed protocols. The compromise wasn't their fault, but they'd learned the reality of operating in cartel territory. That being American wasn't protection. That diplomatic agreements meant nothing when cartel controlled the streets. That only military force could save them when things went wrong. Staff Sergeant Torres received Bronze Star for his leadership during the extraction. His squad received combat action ribbons. The embassy security detachment was reinforced, given more personnel, more equipment, more authority, prepared for the next incident, because everyone knew there would be a next incident. The Sinaloa cartel rebuilt their operation. New warehouse, new procedures, new security. But they also issued new orders. Don't engage American personnel. Report but don't confront. Observe but don't attack. The cost of trapping 6 agents had been 14 dead fighters and a diplomatic crisis. Not worth repeating. That's the legacy of January 11th, 2026. Not the rescue, not the firefight, but the precedent. That American military would violate Mexican sovereignty to save American lives. That diplomatic protests were acceptable cost. That Mexican government's inability to protect Americans justified American military intervention. It was a line crossed, a boundary broken, a precedent set, and once established, it became new normal. American agents in Mexico operated knowing Marines would come if needed. Mexican cartels knew attacking Americans brought military response. Mexican government knew their sovereignty was conditional on protecting Americans. The warehouse in Culiacán still stands. Too hot for cartel operations. Too much attention. Too much history. The building where 6 agents were trapped still has bullet holes. Windows broken. Roof marked with smoke stains. The neighborhood remembers. The day Marines came. The day American military fought in Mexican streets. The day everything changed. Agent Webb still works DEA. Still conducts surveillance. Still operates in Mexico. But now he knows what backup really means. Not Mexican police, not local authorities, but Marines with helicopters, military extraction, combat, operations. That's what saves Americans in cartel territory. Not diplomacy, not agreements. Force. That's the truth from Culiacán. That sometimes saving American lives means violating international law, means sending military into foreign cities, means fighting in streets, means 14 dead and diplomatic crisis. And the decision is always the same. American lives are worth it. The debate continues. Was it right? Was it legal? Was it necessary? But the precedent stands. Americans trapped in Mexico can call for Marines. And Marines will come through hostile fire, through diplomatic protests, through 2 blocks of cartel fighters. They'll come. They'll fight. They'll extract. Because that's what January 11th established. That's what 19 minutes of combat in Culiacán proved. That American military will cross any border to save American lives. Will violate any sovereignty. Will fight any enemy. Will accept any diplomatic cost. The 6 agents extracted that day know it. The Marines who fought to reach them know it. The cartel members who died in those streets know it. Everyone knows it now. American personnel in Mexico have the most powerful backup in the world. Not local police, not international agreements, but U.S. Marines. And they will come, every time, no matter what, no matter where, no matter the cost. That's the lesson from Culiacán. That's the precedent from January 11th. That's what 19 minutes of urban combat established. That American lives are protected by American force, wherever they are, whoever threatens them, whatever the consequences. The diplomatic crisis passed. The protests faded. The incident became history. But the precedent remains. A new boundary, a new understanding, a new reality about American operations in Mexico. And every cartel in Mexico understands. Threaten Americans at your own risk. Because Marines are just 19 minutes away.